Good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I want to thank all of the members that are behind me today. I want to congratulate them as we have just sworn in the first GOP supermajority. It's an historic day. Congratulations, all of you. And this marks the end of one journey of the electoral process, and now it is time for us to begin the second part, the second phase, the most important part, and it's important to all Missourians, and that's of governing. And we take this responsibility very seriously. We know that there are many issues and challenges facing Missourians, facing the citizens of the entire country. And the agenda, the broad-based agenda that I laid out in the opening day speech, in conjunction with the very timely words of the Speaker Pro Tem as to the importance of the states, the states have truly been the leaders in job creation, in lowering the tax burden, in innovation, in education, and in healthcare. It is truly the states that will move forward and have productive sessions over the next few years as the federal government continues to be largely log-jammed and locked down and unable to govern. We have governed over the last many years. We've governed when we have had Republicans in control of all of the legislative forms of government with the executive. We've governed when we've had divided government with our Democratic Governor, Jay Nixon. We have accomplished great things like balanced budgets, which has been the result of the work of the House. Do not mistake that. It's been the work of the House in conjunction with the Senate. It is the General Assembly that has provided those balanced budgets. It's the General Assembly that has helped keep Missouri's AAA bond rating at a AAA status, much higher than the federal government's at this time. It's the General Assembly that has passed bills that have been innovative in job creation and in healthcare and education. And now we're going to look forward to what I believe is going to be 2 very productive years. I laid out the vision of the AAA agenda. Many of you have heard me describe this as I've traveled across this entire state of Missouri. Yes, it's bold. Yes, it's aggressive. But I know that this caucus is chomping at the bit and ready to get to work. I want to congratulate my colleagues in the Senate as well. I look very much forward to working with Speaker Pro Tem Dempsey, with Majority Leader Richard, with all of my other friends in the Senate on both sides of the aisle. I've had conversations with many of them already, Democrats and Republicans. Senator Jamila Nasheed, my good friend in the House, leaps to mind as someone I've had extended conversations already with in the Senate on the Democratic side of the aisle. I've met with many of my Democratic colleagues here in the House. This is going to be a bipartisan agenda that I believe Missourians will embrace, of economic development for job creation, of looking for a strong energy policy for a more energy-independent Missouri, and education. Protecting the funding, as the House has definitely done, K through 12 and higher ed, against encroachment from other branches of government, and also looking towards common sense reforms, which we got a good start on last year. We had some progress. I appreciate the progress. I appreciate the support of my caucus on an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and we'll continue to move forward in that way. We're going to be looking to create jobs as best we can. Government will not create them, but the government will look what it can do to facilitate that and to remove barriers to innovation and reform. I'm happy to address any questions at this time.
Speaker Thomas, you talked earlier about education, but you weren't very specific about what you intend to do on teachers and education reform. We're going to be seeing bills similar to that which seemed last year to be stuck in the caucus. Is there more agreement on those issues this year?
Well, the caucus made did make positive incremental progress in the area of looking at teacher accountability, looking at evaluations, looking at reforming an extremely antiquated system. I really have a tough time thinking of any other industry that cripples its employees other than the way that the bureaucratic teachers unions have done over the last several decades. You know, we've seen billions of extra dollars flow into that system, and if money was the answer to education, we should be, leading the nation and leading the world in education. We are not. Test scores have largely flatlined, and progress has been stalled. So I believe, yes, Rudy, I believe we will start with some of the constructs of the bill that we successfully passed out of the House last year, and looking at putting innovation and reform into the teacher tenure system, merit pay, accountability. All options are going to be on the table. We're going to be releasing committees. We plan to do that before the end of this week, and that's to allow committees to start working next week.
Senator Dempsey has talked extensively about possibly pursuing some sort of tax cut, and there's a multitude of ideas in the Senate. What is kind of the House's feeling about cutting taxes, and would it be paired with getting rid of exemptions or anything like that? What's kind of your take on that?
So I think Senator Dempsey and many of his colleagues' plans dovetail very nicely with the House. I have found that Senator Lamping has a really good handle on many of these tax policy reform issues, and he's already pre-filed a bill I've taken a look at. I think you're going to find a lot of interest in that in the House, and perhaps even a companion bill in the House that mirrors a lot of those concepts. And I think we have to start with the premise that the only way to raise revenue is not through tax increases. And I think to think that is the only presumption, that the only way we can increase revenue in the state is by tax increases is largely naive about economics in general. Year to date, year to year, last year to this year, tax revenue in this state has increased. And some would argue, based upon where we have been, it's increased significantly. I would like to remind you all, we haven't raised a single tax in the state. We've actually cut them. So pro-jobs, pro-growth policies is what ultimately helps increase revenue the most. So the Missouri House has always been willing to lower the tax burden on Missouri's families and small businesses and farmers. And if there's ways to do that and also look at redirecting revenue, I think the government's job is to spend the money in the right way. I think our budget committee will still be looking at waste, fraud, and abuse in the system, and will come up with more money with this increased revenue that will be part of the whole economic picture.
In your address, you mentioned tax credits specifically. You wanted to potentially reduce or get rid of wasteful ones, but you wanted to keep beneficial ones. What are some tax credits that you want to take a particularly hard look at?
Well, I would direct everyone to look at the bill that the House passed in the special session of, I believe it was 2011. In 2011, the House passed a very comprehensive tax credit reform bill that eliminated, I believe, 20-plus tax credit programs. It had savings of millions of dollars. There was a lowering of the caps in some of our largest programs. We worked with Budget Chairman Sylvie and Vice Chairman, now Budget Chairman Stream at the time, and they told me that did give a lot more budget certainty, true savings in the millions of dollars over the long term, and I think that is a proposal that we would look. Now, is it going to be exactly the same as that? No, but I would just point to history as to what the House is willing to do in that area. And as I mentioned in my speech, it's about cutting, it's about capping, and it's about creating.
With the Lieutenant Governor's office, do you see a need to clarify how a vacancy would be filled with the Lieutenant Governor?
You know, Representative Smith has found the need to clarify that for 5 years now. So it's maybe a little ironic or coincidental, but Representative Smith, our new pro tem, has, I believe, pre-filed that piece of legislation. It has been a priority for the House since before we had this year. And now, when the folks who are critical of Representative Smith on their side, they all say, well, what could possibly be the need for this legislation? We've answered that question now, because the reality is, maybe he's clairvoyant, I don't know, but Jason knew that problems like this could come up, and so yes, it's arguable. I believe it should be an elected position right now, but apparently the governor disagrees with that, so we're more than happy to clarify that in the statutes. I believe those bills have been pre-filed not only in the House, but I believe Senator Schaefer has pre-filed the same bill in the Senate.
I want to make sure I'm understanding. Right now, you're saying your understanding or your belief is that it would be a special election to fill a vacancy as the law is right?
Yes, and I actually backed that up with one of my Democratic friends, Jane Duker, who wrote a very good legal, she's an attorney from St. Louis County. She wrote an excellent legal analysis where she agreed with my position on that and not the governor. But you get two lawyers in a room and a judge, and you're going to have to work things out. So while different parties, and the governor is the governor for the next 4 years, so I believe his decision of an appointment is incorrect. So we as the lawmakers are going to clarify that situation and make it 100% unmistakable.
Mr. Speaker, both you and Senator Dempsey are from the St. Louis area. I guess can you talk a little bit about We were going back and looking, it's been at least several decades that both of the chambers had leaders from the area. So I guess can you talk just a little bit about that and how your priorities fit in?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, I think what it's going to do is you're going to see a renewed interest of cooperation between the House and the Senate. I will not sit here and tell you that every single bill that crosses the chambers will then suddenly become law and put on the governor's desk. But what I would say is there's going to be common goals that we are both going to pursue together, and I think that's incredibly important. What is also important is not only that we're from the same region, but that Senator Dempsey and I have a long friendship, both professional and personal. Senator Dempsey was my majority floor leader when I entered the House over 6 years ago. And I look at him as a mentor as well as a friend. I believe his agenda is likewise one that is good for the state of Missouri, and I find a lot of commonality with it. So I believe you'll see a lot of that renewed spirit of cooperation between the leadership in each chamber.
During your speech, you attacked the idea of a bloated and growing welfare state. The Democrat leader, when he was making his short speech before withdrawing from the speaker race, called on the body to vote to expand Medicaid. None of your members didn't seem like anybody even applauded mildly that idea. That basically closed the door on use of that Medicaid expansion money that the federal government is offering.
Well, you know, we're going to fully vet and investigate that issue. I think the way that the minority leader described it is, you know, I suppose the devil is in the nuance or in the details, but you know, we're more interested, as I've said recently, in Medicaid transformation. Governor Blunt took a lot of abuse during the years that he was doing Medicaid reform, and I don't hear a lot of criticism of that reform at this time, because we all now see that it saved over $2 billion in our state's budget. Missouri would be in a much different state right now economically if those reforms hadn't been done. So I have asked in an unofficial capacity for 3 of our experts on this issue in the House to look more deeply into the issue of the federal dollars that are available. You know, right off the bat, no, we are likely not very interested in expanding eligibility. We would be interested in seeing if we can obtain additional funding for those who truly need it, the ones who Republicans have always supported, the elderly, children, and the disabled. I've spoken with folks in the disability community who have flat out told me that this Republican-led legislature has done more for those with disabilities in the last 10 years than was done in the previous 30. And so those are the populations that we want to continue to work on. So Representatives Chris Mullendorf, Representative Jay Barnes, and Dr. Keith Frederick have been working on this issue since the governor made his pronouncement. We're going to try and look towards a free market solution to this. You know, the idea that this is free money coming from Missouri is completely deceptive. There's a price tag on this money, and for the first couple of years, it won't be much or any to Missouri, but long term it will be. Right off the bat, it's going to cost the federal government over $2 billion. And because the federal government is borrowing, I believe, 40 cents of every dollar to support its budget, that is either coming from increasing debt. We're going to be skyrocketing over $16 trillion shortly. And if it doesn't come from increasing more debt, it's going to come from increasing taxes on Missourians from the federal side. So I completely disagree that this is free money. It's not the right way to go. We need to look at more innovative solutions.
Would you even bring this issue up for a vote or for debate at all?
I'm going to have to wait for the Budget Committee to work through all the numbers. I would like for the governor to show a little more leadership on this and trying to ask for a waiver from the federal government to at least protect our DISH funds, if that is possible. There's a lot that the governor's office could lead on this issue, other than simply saying 3 weeks after an election where he didn't utter the word Medicaid, that he suddenly wants to expand the Medicaid program into a much more bloated system that will be a burden on taxpayers. So I'm going to have our Budget Committee look at it, but I will tell you, I'm not much interested in expanding an entitlement.
Benevolent tax credit, you said you wanted to take action this year. Could you possibly be more specific about when you think you'll be able to see action early on in the session? I know there's a lot of organizations that want to start that.
Senator Bob Dixon has already filed a bill in the Senate, and I hope you all are noticing how closely I'm watching my colleagues in the Senate. I like a lot of the legislation they've passed. I don't know if any of us have filed a bill in the House yet on benevolence, but Representative Burleson? Okay. Thank you. Representative Eric Burleson. We have a lot more people to track over here than 34 senators. But Representative Burleson, I know will work with Senator Dixon on that. I support their legislation. So if you're looking for something I support from the get-go, we've got. Many of these benevolent tax credits have already expired. And you know what? These benevolent tax credits support the faith-based and community-based institutions that do work in a much better way than anything that we can create here at the government level. Those are the institutions I want to support. It's a shame that the benevolence got caught up in the larger tax credit debate, but I think this House will be, I believe you'll see an overwhelming bipartisan majority on both sides of the aisle support reinstating the benevolence.
What do you see as a reasonable cap for Mid-Mont?
You know, I have to be very conscious of what our 8 neighboring and bordering states do on every issue. And whether it's tax cuts, whether it's new tax credit incentive programs, whether it's labor reforms, whether it's healthcare reforms, we are being competed against at a high level every day by 8 bordering states. Kansas had the exact, very similar court case to what we had this year in Missouri on medical malpractice caps. Their caps are at $250,000, and their Supreme Court upheld them as being constitutional. So I'm going to be asking our legal scholars in the House, well, how can one state that borders us right next door, how did that survive a constitutional challenge? What has it done for Kansas's economy? What has it done for Kansas's healthcare system? I would imagine that a lot of doctors on the border, especially those who are just graduating from medical school, they're probably thinking to themselves, Kansas looks like a pretty attractive state right now for my tax system, for my medical malpractice system, for my job incentives. I wish we had a governor that was leading like Governor Sam Brownback, but I'll be happy to lead with Tom Dempsey and provide that leadership that we don't have here. As far as exact numbers, we're going to have to vet that issue and come up with a scope on that.
Could you see lowering it below what it was under the 05?
I'm going to leave all issues. I'm going to leave all options on the table. And I will say this though: there's 2 ways to work on this issue: either a statutory fix or taking it to the vote of the people. I really believe the people of the state of Missouri will overwhelmingly produce such an initiative. But I also understand that delays it up to 2 years to the 2014 ballot. I understand the cost of initiative petitions. I understand the protracted, the nature of that. If we can come up with a statutory fix for the medical malpractice issue, just like we did last year with co-employee liability, where labor and employers came together with the trial bar, passed a bill that had almost unanimous support in the House over to the Senate and vice versa, that is the fix I'll be looking for. If it's impossible, I think this issue can go to the voters of the state of Missouri, and they will overwhelmingly approve to protect their healthcare industry.
We have time for 2 more. Following up the Newtown casualty, a lot of Second Amendment supporters said that what we need is a stronger mental health system. Your speech did not touch on the mental health system. Is that an important item on your own agenda this year?
Absolutely. You know, my caucus knows I can talk for hours, and I would have loved to have gone through the entire budget, but I decided to. I'm going to leave that to my budget experts, 2 of whom I'm looking at, and I know Rick's probably behind me somewhere here as well. There, all 3 of you guys hang together, don't you? You know, mental health and disability rights has been one of those issues that's very near and dear to me. I have many constituents whose families I know very well, and I've advocated for those issues. Representative Jeff Grismore has worked on disability issues throughout the years. I've been happy to help him pass his legislation as well. So, as we've been working on the speech, you have to decide what issues to take on, what not. I know that Representative Jeannie Riddle, our Rules Chairman, who is an expert on issues involving our Second Amendment rights and freedoms, but is also a former educator. And I think that is a unique person to look at this issue in conjunction with our budget folks, and I think we'll have answers to that horrible tragedy as well that won't simply be knee-jerk reactions for political points.
Right before Christmas time, the governor appointed Don Zika, I may be mispronouncing his name, to a state board, dropping the House majority to 109. There's also some issue with the Southeast Missouri race. Do you have any fear if the governor might try to appoint another House member to some position to drop it below the 109 majority? Have you heard anything about that at all?
Absolutely, because Jay Nixon is a very clever politician. And I don't think it's any mistake that there are a massive amount, I think unprecedented, number of board and commission openings that remain available for his second term. I think Jay Nixon saw the trajectory of the Missouri House victories over the last few years. Perhaps that's why he chose not to assist or invest in any of his fellow Democratic colleague House races and leave them on their own. But yet he's retained that arsenal of commissions and boards. I think it's really unfortunate that the governor is using the political power of his office to influence the representative democracy that we have in the House and to alter what the people of the state of Missouri decided just a few months ago. So if the governor would like to continue to play those political games, there's not very much I can do about it. However, you know, if the governor truly believes that certain members of my caucus, who we have many brilliant members, very skilled, highly educated, able to perform in these jobs, if he feels that they are qualified candidates, next time, I'd appreciate it if Jay Nixon gave me a call first so we could work through the process and decide how we're going to replace those people that were overwhelmingly voted into this supermajority.
Are you discouraging members from taking calls from Nixon?
I'm asking members that if they receive a call from Jay Nixon to make the second call to me before any decision's made, so we can work through the process together.
I have to do one follow-up for that.
Sure.
During Governor Blunt's administration, he appointed Kevin Gunn to the PSC. He appointed Joe Danduran to the Missouri Court of Appeals. Those were seen as ways to get them out of the state senate races. Was it wrong for Governor Blunt to do something like that?
Kevin Gunn, who's a very good friend of mine, never ran for actual election. I believe he pulled out before the election even started. So he was not an elected. I don't know about Mr.
He never ran either.
And Danduran never ran
They
either.
were seen as possible candidates for this seat.
As they say in the law, a huge distinction is there. So, Jason, if you know of any that Governor Blunt pulled out of the General Assembly where it made an actual difference. Now, if I had 103 or 104 members, this would probably not be an issue. But the governor knows exactly what he's doing, and I think it's really politically opportunistic. And I'm very sorry that he chose to go that route instead of working with us above board to work on policy for Missourians. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.